Good evening and welcome to our town hall on Falcon Update live on MC77. Joining us tonight is Todd Abbott, our student body president, and Brian Gilroy, the vice president of organizations for SGA. They're going to be here to answer a few questions about SGA and anything Messiah related. We are also accepting live questions throughout the show, so you can ask questions on Twitter and Instagram under MC77TV and through MC77@messiah.edu. So how are you guys this evening?
Doing pretty well so far.
Doing
Just
great.
got back on campus this afternoon, so back into the swing of things.
Good Thanksgiving break then?
Oh yeah, it was great.
Okay. So just to kind of start us into this, one of the first things that you and Marianne talked about the last time you were here was setting up like new Wi-Fi routers in Lottie. How has that been? What's the process been like for that?
Yeah, so we reached out to the information technology department at the beginning of the year because we had listed that as one of our goals. And they were just really wonderfully receptive. Brian works with them, he knows, they're great people.
Yeah.
They agreed that that was a lack. They never even were really aware that there was trouble getting access through Lottie. So they were able to act on that quickly, and within a couple months they added 6 new access points. So you can't see them, they're all around in the ceiling in Lottie, but hopefully people have noticed the difference. You should be able to access from anywhere. Each of the 6 can connect 60 high-speed devices.
Oh, wow.
So between all of those, you have plenty of chances unless Lottie is quite overpacked.
I mean, that usually only happens on like Thanksgiving dinners, like the special event kind of stuff. I know that there's also been a recent change with Messiah Secure becoming a network. Is that anything to do with the changes that you guys made with the Wi-Fi in Lottie, or is that
Sure,
something?
yeah, that was over the summer. That was really all through the information technology department, but they, Brian, you could talk about that better than I could.
As far as I know, there was not really any change as far as just streamlining the name, because with MCWPA, I don't think people always knew what that meant. So I believe it was just more of keeping things simpler both for students and for guests as they navigate our different networks.
I've actually heard some people talking about this. I was talking with some friends about like the questions I was going to ask tonight, and one of them mentioned that the Wi-Fi seems to be slower now that we've switched to Messiah Secure, actually, and people are saying that they're having trouble getting online or staying connected in classes in their dorm rooms. Is that just because this is a new system?
Well, it's not a new system. As Brian said, a lot of it was just changed, so I think those experiences have always been an issue, and they may still be there, but not more so than in the past.
Okay, I mean, that's good to know at least. It, you know, puts to rest some of the questions that people have.
So we're going
on
after,
campus.
you know, individual areas as we can, starting with
Right.
Lottie and looking, you know, if we find out like there's a specific residence hall that an area of a floor doesn't get any service, we always like to know that so we can pass it along.
Yeah, and this also, there's only so much you can do at a time. There's so many things you might want to improve, and realistically, I'm sure it's, you know, you just have to pick and choose what's best for campus at a given time.
Well, Wi-Fi is definitely important to the daily experience. I think one of the things we wanted to be careful of with Lottie in particular was how people want to make sure they have a community time and they're still talking with their friends and not just on their phones and their computers. So we actually got a student reach out to us with a similar concern, and it was good because we had already been discussing it. So we wanted to partner with Minds Matter. We've been talking about hopefully cordoning off maybe a section of Lottie as a tech-free zone. So maybe one night a week or one meal, there'll be an end of Lottie where, you know, you can drop your phone in a basket and just take time to intentionally be with your friends and talk through things. But, you know, we don't want to enforce that for the whole room because we know not everyone would be supportive of that. So definitely a good balance would be to have that one section, maybe one night a week, and see how people respond.
And do you think you guys would also benefit from trying something like that? Just having a tech-free meal?
Yeah, we actually enforce that rule very strictly at all of our meetings.
Really?
They make fun of me because I put in a phone drawer. So whenever they come in for our SGA meetings, we all leave our phones in a basket, close the drawer. It's been a really great benefit for focus during meetings, for people to make sure they're all there. We watched a TED Talk from Simon Sinek at the beginning of the year about, you know, millennials and leadership, and just heard a lot of great insights about why it's hard to divide your attention, even if it's just out on the table. There's the temptation, and people may perceive some different divides than there even are, but it's just more helpful to leave them at the door for us.
Right. And so speaking of like changes that we've brought to Lottie, you've also brought some changes to the union with the Build It Yourself smoothies, and how has that been?
Yeah, that one was exciting because, you know, we talked about that back in the campaign, so to see that come to fruition was pretty exciting. You know, again, dining, just like information technology, was so receptive. Everybody's so wonderful. When you bring to them a legitimate concern and you say, hey, some students are thinking about this, they'll always be willing to talk about it. So first we rolled out the yogurt smoothies with the real fresh fruit, And then we moved into the Build Your Own. They also added Build Your Own for the wraps, which are now the melts. And we have our own dining committee. So part of SGA's reach is assigning students to serve on all of the college committees, which oversee specific areas. So we have a dining committee, which is run by our Director of Dining Services, Mark Wirtz, and our head chef, Purcell Green. And they meet once a month to just talk about the menu items, how things are working, how it's all going. So our two students are Deanna Preziosi and Jonathan Logan. So they've been doing amazing work, and they were a part of the decision. I think everyone got the mass email this morning about the healthier options with the combo meals, because a lot of people enjoy the combos for the drinks, but not everyone needs fries every time. So I believe it's carrot sticks, apples, bananas, celery sticks are all options now for a combo meal, and I think that's really exciting, especially because, you know, as the executive team of SGA, we didn't even have a hand in that. There's just so many wonderful things happening with the people we have in place.
And are there any other like meal things that you're trying to bring into the union or into any of the dining options on campus?
Any ideas burning, Brian?
I don't have any ideas right now that I'd think through. I think just making sure to streamline, you know, working with dining for the process of maybe talking through like how, you know, dining dollars that don't get spent, and also like maybe with a la carte, like more some of the other operational things or things that maybe we'll continue to look into.
So again, we're always open. If anyone comes up with other ideas, please bring them to us, since we don't come up with them all ourselves. People are so wonderful and bring us the ideas that we're able to implement.
And speaking of the Dining Dollars, you just announced not long ago that there's a Dining Dollars Facebook group for people who have more money to spend and no one to spend it on, and people who need the money. So can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, we'll take it back a step. Over the summer, when I was here in August, I was a part of a task force called Food Insecurity. So there's a recent study that came out from Temple University that found that 36% of college students in the country just don't feel like they have enough access to food, and it's an active stress in their lives, worrying about where their next meal will come from or if they'll make it through the semester. So we branched out from that. There were a lot of different departments involved and a lot of great ideas, and one of the ways SGA stepped up was realizing that we could facilitate among student-to-student ways to balance. Of course, there's always people at the end of the semester with plenty left over and some who run out early. We've all been in the Falcon when someone's checking out with 40 monsters they're taking home that they probably don't need and they'll probably go to waste, all the bags of chips. So we said, you know, considering the fact that 36% of the country is not getting enough food, college students, and now we have people with excess that are essentially putting it to waste for things to packaged foods to take home, we wanted to connect that and bridge the gap. So then the question, of course, was how to make that happen. I know a lot of people will just link up with their friends, but a lot of times that could disenfranchise different groups who are, you know, underrepresented on campus. And then, you know, if a friend group lives in an apartment, then probably none of them had the meal plan. And commuter students especially sometimes, you know, don't have the meal plan and are on campus a lot. So through the group, it's kind of a leap of faith because, of course, it's going to take people to step up and say, yes, I have available extra before people will come out and say, can someone help? And, of course, it's sometimes an awkward thing to reach out and ask for that. And, you know, strangers are strangers sometimes. But hopefully with the Messiah community that we have, it can be effective. I looked a lot to inspiration from Jamie Claire Chow, who was the president last year. She started the Messiah College Community Carpool, which now has about 500 members, and it's a similar idea for people who don't have transportation on and off campus. They can either put that they're offering or seeking a ride at a certain time to a certain place, and other people can respond and say, hey, yes, I'm driving this way, I can take you, or sure, you can join me. So that was kind of the inspiration and the model that we're going to follow. So I talked to Jamie Claire a little about that, and she was supportive of this idea as well. Of course, the Book Network is probably what most people are familiar with. That's been around the longest. It has almost 2,000 members now, and that's just such an effective model because of the challenging book costs. So we're hoping people will, over time, step up, and it'll definitely take a few weeks to get the ball rolling. You know, it's mostly going to be effective at the end of semesters because in January, no one's going to be thinking that they have extra money yet. So the goal would be to get some active members using it and meeting with each other by the end of this semester, and then in the spring we'll have more added, and it can be pretty effective.
That sounds really amazing. That's actually something I know that I've talked about with my friends, of how to split up money between us if someone has money to spend and someone else is like, well, you know, like you could always just swipe me in. This does make it a lot more convenient, and it gives a wider platform for people who like you said, don't necessarily have maybe the friend group to not mooch off of, but to like
Right.
just ask for, you know, a swipe and a lottie when it's a good meal at night.
Yeah, so I think at the end of the day, it's a very public activity that everyone can get involved with, but will really have a profound effect on the fringe students who really need that access and have food insecurity as a stressor that affects maybe their coursework or especially as finals approach. So it's a broader sweep to trickle down affect everyone that really needs help.
Right. And so kind of talking along with like just general improvements that you've brought to campus, both of you, there's also the master calendar that you and Marianne talked about bringing in. So is that active yet? Is that something that's in the process of being worked on right now?
Yeah, definitely. Ryan, you want to tell them?
Yeah, so actually last year there was an initiative between myself and some others of talking through how can we better represent the events that are happening on campus. Because of the old calendar, it was only certain events that ended up on the calendar. So through talking with the IT people and some other folks, we were able to start to get the ball rolling on a prototype of the calendar. And now with the new Falcon link, there is going to be a calendar portion of that on there. There's still some different processes that we have to work through as far as how events get approved, who does the approval, but there will be a separate events calendar on Falcon Link that students can go and learn what events are happening specifically for students.
And is there any like idea yet of how like different groups, like would you have to be a club to like send in an event that you want people to maybe know about or register for?
Yeah, so we're working with Chris Hardy is in the marketing department, and then John Wheat is one of the developers who put together Falcon Link. So we want to figure out different ways that probably SGA will have final approval of events through the system called Jardu, and people will be able to submit, but there'll be, you know, fast tracks for clubs, executive clubs like SAB, who we know we can trust to be putting in real events. Sometimes it's an issue to cross-check. If someone says they have a space reserved and they're advertising, they're going to show a movie in Parmer Cinema, somebody has to go into the log and say, okay, yes, Parmer Cinema is reserved for these people at this time.
Right.
So one of the big jumps is right now, the events calendar on messiah.edu is public. So we have a public events calendar that, because it's available to anyone, we only advertise events that are available to everyone, of course, for safety reasons. So the only things you can find on there are art shows, theater productions, which are some of the best we have, but also there's a lot that doesn't get represented there. Even Go Messiah, the athletics page, doesn't link directly into that as of now. So what we're envisioning is this calendar within the password protected was MC Square, now it'll be Falcon Link, where students can access directly, and then you'll see every student event, everything that's happening available to members of the Messiah community. It'll be run by us, the members of the Messiah community, so we can ensure the safety is password protected, but also that all of the events can be on there.
That's really awesome. We will have more questions when we come back, so don't forget to send in your questions on Twitter and Instagram under MC77TV and through MC77@messiah.edu. Stay tuned.
Welcome to GoMessiah.com, the official website of Messiah College Athletics. On the homepage, you can find recent stories, a social media directory including general athletics and sport-specific accounts, and the Falcon YouTube stream. Scrolling down, you can view upcoming events with stats, audio, and video links if available, as well as recent results, including box scores and recaps. In those recaps, you can read the story along with view the photo gallery, next game information, team schedule, and roster. Game stats are on the side, and you can even watch the highlight of the night. These highlights are made possible by GoMessiah.tv, where you can view live streams and stats for all home games, regardless of where you are. GoMessiah.com, your home for everything Falcon.
At the Learning Center, we provide a free service for all Messiah students to come and get a little extra help. You can sign up for a Learning Center appointment on the MC Square homepage through the Learning Center quick link. What you want to do is you want to just click that link and it will prompt you to pick a subject and a time. We're open from 3 to 10 p.m. so any time period in those hours you can pick. You can sign up for a half hour or for an hour time slot, and then it will work with you to find a tutor that best fits your needs. Hi, I'm Claire. Are you here for your Learning Center appointment?
Yeah. I'm Joan Southerden. I'm director of the Learning Center, and we have 20 very capable tutors who are not only knowledgeable in their subject area, but very capable in communicating that information to students that might need a little extra help.
My name is Joy Endicott, and I've been to the Learning Center a couple of times for various subjects and help, and it's just been a really great experience, and it's a really great resource for students. I know a couple times that I've been, my professor noticed that I had come and that my skills had improved, and they were really happy about that, and they gave me a couple extra points on a test, or they commended me for doing so.
The number of students that I tutor varies depending on the week. I'm here for 3 hours a week, and people can sign up for either a half an hour or an hour slot.
I've been to the Learning Center for Chinese tutoring over the past year, and I think it was a really cool experience because, they went at my pace, and it's really good to get another opinion on something other than just the professor. A student that's been through it, kind of teaching you through everything, is definitely a better experience than just trying to, suffer through it yourself.
Welcome back to our town hall live on MC77. Do make sure to send in your questions live on Twitter and Instagram under MC77TV and through mc77@messiah.edu. So I've heard some talk about there being changes to Student Senate, especially with renaming the subgroups into forums. Could you tell me a little about that, Brian? Or?
Yeah, I guess that one would be me. Over the summer, one of my main projects was to look at our governance manual. So Student Senate and student government, everything is channeled through the governance manual. It's this 100-page document that lays it all out. So the document was first adopted in 1999, and we've made a lot of edits over time as things are, realized we can make things better, tweak. So it's got so much wonderful information, but because it was edited for 20 years, there were some things with a lot of cross jumps, check this section, see here, 2.4.7.6, and it just went on and on. So I took it from the governance section and said, I want to start from scratch, use all the same information, but let's put it in a new format so people can read it. It's accessible to anyone who wants to go on and see how things are run. So one of the things that came out of that was realizing that each week we have these student senate meetings, and in the past we were inviting, rep from here, and every week there was a list going out. We want to invite these 10 reps, and then the senators, and then these clubs. So we wanted to consolidate that all together, and now I've labeled them 2 forums. So the primary forum is there every week whenever Senate meets, and that includes our independent student senators, which is right now 25 people. Anyone who gets signatures from their peers and feels that they can represent the students well is able to serve on that. We also have now representatives from certain departments. So Sustainability Office sends one, the Athletics Department sends one, SAGE, Commuter Services, and a few others. Residence Life. Who else is on there? The executive clubs are also on the primary forum, so the 8 reps from the 8 executive clubs. So that way there's a solid group every week. Those people are there. They're going to chat, whatever's going on. And then certain weeks when we were inviting the extended forum, is the other half with the new name. That then includes every chartered club, which is everyone that receives money from SGA, and the Student Review Board, which is 6 board members who hear judiciary cases. So it's a very clear 2-body system. The larger extended forum comes whenever we need to vote on changes, whenever things are rolling in, for governance review, for, what else do we vote on as a large body?
The budget.
The budget. That's an important one.
And I think by having 2 systems of different parties of the Senate helps have a better flow of communication. I know that before, without having this division, it was harder to keep track of knowing who needed to be there when. So I think this really simplifies both communication and flow during Senate.
Yeah, that sounds really great. And I heard that there are some new representatives coming on to I guess it would be coming onto Senate, and they're from MCC and for the Ambassadors Program and Admissions Office, I think?
Yeah.
Could you tell me a little
more?
more?
We'll use the new lingo. There's one new rep to the primary forum for the Admissions Office / the Ambassador Program. Basically just another voice that wasn't represented as of yet. Someone to look at our decisions to say how will they affect enrollment. Of course, at the end of the day, we need new students to be coming here. So as current students, we should also consider the way that the things we do will affect how people will see us if they want to come here, especially things like costs down the road. Even if we're looking at something that may not be an issue for another 6 years, someone from an admission standpoint is going to say, well, in 6 years, this is going to affect whether people want to come here or not. So that's an exciting voice. But the one we're most happy to finally have in place is on the extended forum, 5 new representatives from the Multicultural Council. So because of the structure of the Multicultural Council, they're not officially 6 separate clubs. They're under the umbrella of the Multicultural Council, which is an executive club. But then we have the African Student Union, the Asian Student Association, the Black Student Union, International Student Association and Missionary Kids, and La Alianza Latina. So because they weren't clubs of their own, technically they weren't represented on the larger forum, and they're already underrepresented to begin with, so of course that was just expounding the problem. So thanks to Logan Buffington, our VP of Finance, and then Gloria, the chair of the Multicultural Council, they put together the proposal, and we're now able to have all 6 of those groups represented individually on the extended forum, which is really exciting.
And so if someone were to be looking for the representatives for these clubs and for these forums, is there somewhere they could look to find specific people?
Well, I don't think they would ever be looking for the representative in particular, but leadership of the clubs is available. You know, you can look up who the leaders of a certain club are, and in general, they send the leader to the Senate forum, so it would usually line up.
Okay, that's really cool, like to know that you guys are bringing in more representation and more voices into Student Senate, just so, you know, it's easier for people to be heard, for there to be more discussion on things that people are actually talking about on campus.
Yeah, it's come so far. It's such a unified group now that there's really a sense of community, especially having those set, you know, subgroups. You know who you're a part of, you know what team you're on, and just seeing everyone from every area of campus come together once a week or whenever we're able to meet to talk about what's going on is really a great sense of unity and a show of community.
And you've kind of already touched on this, but how do you think having these new representatives will bring more discussion or more positivity to the campus? Like, how will it affect students?
I think that having more representatives just helps there be more diversity within the conversation. I really think the Student Senate is a great opportunity. I would encourage any student on campus to come to Student Senate. It's open to the public, all our meetings, and it's just a really beautiful picture to see people from all different parts of campus come together and have a good, thoughtful, and fruitful discussion. So I think having a more broad perspective continues to enrich and cultivate a deeper discussion.
Yeah, and you know, Messiah is all about the community, and it's all about the discussion and, you know, trying to improve and, you know, strive for excellence. And so kind of along with that, we were talking a little earlier about the things that Student Senate votes on, and you mentioned that one of the things was the budget. How does that work? How does the budgeting system work with the clubs?
So that's something that myself and Logan, who's the Vice President of Finance, we start in the fall meeting with all of the individual clubs it's called the Finance and Organizations Workshop, and we go over them, how they write a budget, how to fill out like things like Messiah Fleet, and go over all of that, and then give them a deadline a week or 2 from then and say, give us your budget. And then from that process, we look at the budget, see what we're allowed to give as far as approvals and not, and then we go from there to say, okay, do we have a deficit, do we have a surplus, and more than often than not, we end up with a deficit, so then there has to be certain cuts to that. And then we as Student Senate decide how that deficit should be shared, what different cuts need to happen. But something newer that I was able to implement last year is called performance evaluations. So it's kind of like a rubric system to help be a guideline for clubs to say, hey, are you spending your money well? Are you responding to our emails on time? Are you engaging the campus? And it's not so much a, well, you didn't do this, you don't get a budget. It's more of a, how can we help facilitate that you're doing the best to serve your constituents, the students, and therefore if clubs are doing that really well, they should be rewarded for that. So it's more of a way to how can we help when there does come a time the budget has to be decided. So it's not a cut and dry system, but more of a guide.
Right. And is it difficult to split the money between so many different clubs?
Yes. Logan and I say all the time that if we had enough money to give to all these different clubs, because the programming they want to do is so great for our community, but it is hard to say to one club, no, you can't have this event or what. I mean, we don't determine you can't have this event, but by cutting the funding, is not going to allow them to have that. So I just think it's really helping clubs think strategically, like how can we maintain the mission and the goal of what your club is trying to do, but maybe that means not having as much food or not having as much decorations, or how can we help them still do the best they can with the funds that we have.
Right. And in doing that, how do you ensure that it's fair, that each club gets what you think they deserve and what they think they deserve?
Diligence. Logan Buffington was an absolute MVP during the budgeting process this year because he went through each individual one, met with each of the clubs. Brian was there too, and he came out with 5 different potential proposals of ways that it could be divvied out, whether it was a straight cut across everyone, whether it was based on the size of the club, whether it was based on what they had asked for in the past and how much they were changing this year. So really, he just put in so much legwork that by the time it was brought to Student Senate for a vote, there were so many possibilities laid out for the students that they were able to see, no one's trying to pull anything over on us. Like, these are such thoughtful proposals. He's really gone through all the options. And in the end, I think we decided on going through based on how much change there was from past years. So if someone had spiked up a lot this year, they may have not received quite as much of the spike as they had asked for versus someone who actually went down in their budget from last year. So I think that was the consensus after a long, really great discussion at Senate. Again, a great example of when people are able to come together and have a civil discourse about it. But again, we made it in the end. We always do somehow or another, but it was much smoother this year than it has been in the past thanks to Logan's work.
It's very true. Yeah, we were able to only need to have one Senate, because normally there's one Senate where we talk about the budget and there has to be further deliberation into the next one. So because of those options, I just thought it'd also be good to note that actually when we go before Senate, those options don't have to be there. We can technically, per the governance manual, go there and say, okay, here's the deficit, and then during that period, Senate would have to figure it out. But rather than all of us have to sit there forever trying to figure it out, we put together proposals to say, hey, here's some options, and it was so wonderful that we were out of there in one time and were able to see people come together on a decision because they were well informed. So it was a really great part by Logan.
And so this is a note out to all the people who are in executive clubs that you have Logan Buffington to thank for the efficiency of the budgeting system. We will have more questions after the break. Don't forget to send them in on Twitter and Instagram under MC77 TV and through MC77@messiah.edu. Don't go anywhere.
specifically to help students with a lot of their questions regarding career and vocation. So if you're an incoming student and you're saying, I don't know what I should major in, or I've picked a major and I don't know what I should do with that major, we are a great place to come because we offer one-on-one counseling for students. There are 6 career coaches in our office that meet every day with lots of appointments to help you with your questions about a career and jobs and internships. So we do one-on-one counseling. If you've never built a resume, we can help you with that and correct that. If you've never done a practice interview, we do those. If you would like to meet with professionals in the field, we help you with that. Into the City is where each semester we take a trip to a major metropolitan area and take students with us. And we go with the sole purpose of helping students experience businesses and places of work in a large urban area. We've been to New York City, Boston. Currently we're leaving for Chicago, Baltimore, Nashville, Charlotte. So all the major cities we have been trying to get to, and we take students with us so that they can find out what it's like to live in the city and work there.
I really enjoyed my time going to Nashville. It was a really great opportunity to really understand what networking is, just being able to see, wow, from Messiah, that I could go and work in some of these big companies and small companies. Don't wait too long to go to the Career Center. They're here every day to want to help you. I know that really benefited me going there first year to be able to talk through my major change, what exactly a resume was, things to not say in an interview, a lot of different skills that were really beneficial that helped me get a leg up even from a first year student. I know sometimes you think, oh, I don't need to start thinking about this till sophomore, junior year, but there's a lot of resources that they have that can really help you get a step ahead.
Welcome back to our town hall live on MC77. As usual, you can send in your questions live on Twitter and Instagram under MC77TV and through MC77@messiah.edu. So one of the things that SGA has done recently is to set up booths where they've kind of interacted with the students and asked them to do anonymous polls, and one of them was about student wages. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so they're called #What'sYourTakeTables. Again, an idea that came from Jamie Claire Chow's cabinet last year, a wonderful thing they started and we decided to continue. So we're aiming for every Monday now, and it's essentially just a table where we'll pick a topic and students can come and share their opinions. So Marian Ramirez, our vice president, is heading up that charge, and Tet Takahara is one of our senators also leading the committee task force for the What's Your Take tables. So the student wages one you're referencing is actually a great example of something that was not on the radar of SGA, but students came to us and said they have a concern, we want to talk about this, and we were able to bring it to a larger body to have a discussion. So it was through Jordan Sponsler and Sean Sookham, and they mentioned that they have some concerns about the wages that students are paid. So we just wanted to gather some more information. Tet and Marian put together the table. I think one of the things they found was just a question of how much do students rely on their on-campus wages for financial stability, and how much do they trust in those being consistent. And on a scale of 1 to 10, the average was about a 7 of people feeling that they rely on those wages for their financial security. So that was a really good statistic just to have. Again, these are very preliminary discussions. SGA doesn't have a stance one way or the other. We're just trying to facilitate good discussion, bring it to the right people who can talk about it. We connected them with our Vice President of Human Resources, Amanda Coffey, and they're in talks right now, but for that one, we'll stay tuned.
And why do you think there should be a raise in student wages?
Well, as I said, SGA doesn't have a stance on that yet. We're just trying to gather some information. I think just in general, people were feeling that because they rely on it for financial means, and Pennsylvania has a low minimum wage, so some people were naturally raising questions, but at this time, we're just trying to gather information and see what people are feeling.
And in the process of gathering information, what was the student response like with people responding to these anonymous polls at the booth?
Right, so that's, as I had mentioned, about the 7 out of 10 were feeling that they relied on it a lot. I don't have the information on the others. I think, of course, there was a question about, do you wish your wages were higher? Of course, that was about an 85% yes rate, but other hard statistics. We do have a published report if anyone's interested from SGA of the stats that we got from that What's Your Take table. But
Awesome. And we've talked a lot about changes that have been brought to campus and changes that we're looking forward to, like the calendar. And one of the biggest changes that we've talked about a lot this semester is the change from Messiah College to Messiah University. So what's both your takes on that?
Brian, what you got?
Well, I think that originally when I heard that it was changing from Messiah College to Messiah University, I had some, not doubts, but just like wondering to make sure that by changing that nothing on campus was going to change, even by the name change. And I think that through understanding that, it's not going to be more than a name change, we're still maintaining to who we are and what our values and goals are. I think it just better represents who we are as a campus, and I'm more on board with it now. But originally, I had thought, I just didn't want anything of who we are to change because of a name change.
Yeah, so administratively, this process started about 2 years ago. A task force was put together, led by President Phipps. The student body president, Jake Edmonds at the time, served on the task force. And they really spent 2 full years just looking at research on other schools who've made the change, different structures that we currently employ, and they came to make the recommendation that we should implement the change in 2 years. A lot of their reasoning was thinking about the way we're already separated into 4 schools, and we have such an established grad program now with over 700 students. We have our first doctorate program. So we have all the pieces. We're essentially operating as a university, but this really gives us a chance to reflect who we are. Similar to Brian, I wasn't sure exactly how I felt at first. Coming through the process and hearing those presentations on those specific reasons was huge. It's also a piece for international recruitment. When people just Google University, Christian, United States, we're not going to come up. And some cultures use the term college to refer to a high school. So it's just a way to make sure people are finding us for what we truly are. Sometimes college is also associated with the idea of, just a Bible major or just a Bible school, which of course is what we came from and we're proud of, but we've expanded so much into the liberal arts and pre-professional arts. But it eventually came before the board. I feel like I'm skipping some steps in there, but there was a agreement to pass the change.
Yeah.
Oh, I know what I wanted to say. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Once I talked to President Phipps and she shared her support for the piece, I was convinced because I trust in her leadership so greatly. I put out a couple polls for the students. One was just a off the cuff, how do you feel if we changed our name Messiah College to Messiah University, just on my social media, very unofficial. And it got about 1,200 interactions, and I think it turned out 57% in favor of the change, 43% opposed. Totally unofficial numbers. Pretty split, which I think is fair, when people are first presented with it. But then when it came before Student Senate, President Phipps came, talked about those reasons, went through the slideshow that she had put together from the task force, and by the time it came to a vote in Senate, even with President Phipps out of the room, no pressure, it was, I think, 68 in favor and 2 abstentions. So it really just showed me that, yes, at first glance, there's some current concerns because people don't want anything to change. People want to make sure, the price will stay the same, how we operate, our commitment to the Christian faith. But once those fears are explained as to why there's nothing to worry about and why this will benefit us, I think it was pretty clear for students to see the upside.
And you had mentioned earlier that, we've changed a lot. How do you think this recent change that we're going to be, implementing in about a year and a half to Messiah University, how do you think that reflects the journey of Messiah since its establishment?
I would say that I think going throughout Messiah's history, the one thing that has stayed constant is having Christ preeminent and how they're wanting students to gain the maturity of intellect towards Christian faith, towards service and lives of reconciliation. And I really think that this is just going to be another piece of the puzzle of how God has used Messiah in the past and going forward. So I think that it will be a good process that will help future generations of Messiah grads.
Yeah. And so are there any other projects that are in the works that we can look forward to? I mean, since we're talking so much about improvements on campus and things to kind of look forward to in the future and things that have been brought into existence now.
Yeah, the Dining Dollar Network has been my priority for the last few weeks. As we come into the end of the semester, some of the less glamorous projects will surface. We do a lot of mid-year reporting. So I gather summaries and reflections from all of the executive club leaders, a lot of the chartered clubs, our student diplomats, just to kind of look through how the semester went, ways we want to learn from that and improve in the spring. Not the most exciting pieces for outside views. But Yeah, we want to see the Dining Gala Network get off the ground. The master calendar is live. It's up on Falcon Link, but a lot of students are still using MC Square because it's still there. So as Falcon Link becomes more commonplace among students, I think that'll be a great chance for them to access the calendar. We have a lot of work left to do, as we mentioned earlier, to make sure it's populated with all the events that it needs to be. But that's on our priority list. I think as we move into the spring, it's already going to be time to start talking elections. It's our job to make sure people come out to run for student body president and vice president. And also the 5 cabinet positions are absolutely crucial. We have great people like Brian who make them what they are. So we want to make sure that whatever ends in May doesn't end in May and is continued.
Right. And since you brought up the master calendar again, we were talking a little bit about it in between the show and during the break about the process of getting it all set up and getting it kind of out there to the students who are right now not using Falcon Link as much, and the process of how you guys are moderating events and how events can be submitted and the process. Could you touch a little more on just how you would like to see people interact with this calendar more, I guess?
So I think the goal would be to have sort of a flowing system where chartered and recognized clubs would be able to have a point person to give their events to, which then would flow to either myself or Kevin, our advisor, or Todd to be approved, and then from there making sure that all of it, if it's a place that has reserved space, that it's reserved through conference event services and then can go live. I just think having more of the goal is to have just a constant flow of how the communication can go from one person to another and not making someone have to type it 3 times, so that way hopefully the information can be entered once and just go right onto the calendar. That's the goal.
Right. And with so many organizations, how do you think the calendar, do you think there's a way you guys are going to organize it to make sure it doesn't look messy, that people can actually see everything? Now with the events calendar that we have, there's you can generally see 2 or 3 events, and then there's a click more tab, and is that kind of the format you guys are looking for with this new events calendar?
Yeah, I think the key will be less is more as far as that first headline of what the event is, rather than just the full calendar view of the month. What it should start as is a Today at Messiah, which is already active. You'll be able to click just today's events, and you'll see a pull-down list of everything happening, what time it is, where it's at, and then you can click it for more information. Then there's a link to click View Full Calendar, and you can go check out other dates. That's most helpful for students who want to plan an event or clubs that are putting something together and want to make sure there's not other things already going on the same day. But for the average person who wants to come in and just see what's happening, this is great for staff and faculty as well. All they have to do is click Today at Messiah. And yes, like you said, the goal is just one continuous list. There's no click here, view more. It's just there. You can see it all.
And is this going to be open to the public?
No, not to the public. This will be password protected within Falcon Link to protect, student events that are for students only.
And so, with events that you're tying in, I know that something that already has their own calendar is the Messiah College Athletic Network. How do you think you guys are going to tie into that? Are you going to still have the 2 separate websites? Are you going to tie in their events onto this new events calendar as well?
I think that's a conversation that we're going to have with both athletics and the IT department. I believe we're hopeful that there will be a way through some back-end computer work that we can kind of sync the 2 together. I think that would be the goal, that you'd be able, that Go Messiah would still have the events on there, but you could find them in both places.
Yeah, that's really great to hear. Thank you so much, both of you, for coming out tonight. I know you both have very busy schedules. That's all for this evening's Town Hall, but be sure to tune in next week for our regular Falcon Update and MC Live show. Once again, thank you to Todd and Brian for just joining us tonight and sharing so much information with us. Have a great night, guys.
Welcome back to MC77. Here is this week's campus calendar. On Saturday, December 8th, IS is hosting a dodgeball tournament in Sawyer Gymnasium starting at 1 p.m. Don't dodge the opportunity to get involved in this great event. And it's easy to get involved, so here's what to do. Step 1 is to find some people to make a team with. The minimum number of players is 10 and the maximum is 12. Step 2, come up with a team name and be creative. Step 3, fill out the Google Doc form using the link in your email. You only need one form per team. And sign up anytime before December 1st to compete in the tournament. Minds Matter is hosting a discussion event on anxiety this Wednesday, November 28th. The event will take place from 7 to 9 p.m. in Boyer 131. And Minds Matter will have people speaking on anxiety, how to cope with it, how to recognize the signs of an anxiety attack, and how to help others who may be struggling with it. The Department of Theater and Dance invites you to join the team. Ushers are needed for the 2018 Fall Senior Series, which will feature 2 weekends of original performances. The performances are December 7th and 8th in Grace Pollock Dance Studio and December 14th and 15th in Pullman Black Box Theater. Students who volunteered to usher will also get to see the show for free. Sounds like a good deal to me. A sign-up sheet is available for each performance, and they will be filled in on a first-come, first-served basis. And Sage Prism will be talking about LGBT plus in ministry on November 27th from 5:30 to 7 p.m. in the Loft. They will be joined by 2 guest speakers this week to share their stories and to talk about the journeys of their congregations. Reverend Lori Hatch Rivera from Metropolitan Community Church of the Spirit and Pastor Jay McDermott from Engaged Community Church will be with us. Come learn about the ways that LGBT matters intersect with the church and connect with some local churches. And join the Oaks Museum of Natural History on December 1st from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. for their annual open house. There'll be a winter craft project for children, a story time, winter photo booth, special discounts in the museum store, drawings for museum gift certificates, and refreshments will be served. You do not need to RSVP for this event, and admission is free, so invite a friend. SAB Lost Films will be showing Crazy Rich Asians on November 30th at 6 p.m. and 9 p.m., and on December 1st at 3, 6, and 9 p.m. The story follows Rachel Chu, an American-born Chinese economics professor, who travels to her boyfriend Nick's hometown of Singapore for his best friend's wedding. Before long, his secret is out. Nick is from a family that is impossibly wealthy. He's perhaps the most eligible bachelor in Asia, and every single woman in his ultra-rarefied social class is incredibly jealous of Rachel and wants to bring her down. Still looking for Christmas presents for your friends and family? Come to the Falcon Flea Market on Sunday, December 2nd from 4 to 6 p.m. And also, MCC will be holding an open council to discuss cultural appropriation on November 28th in Alexander Auditorium, Fry 110 at 7 p.m. That's all for this week's campus calendar. I'm Hannah McGarvey.
Hi, my name is Abigail McBride. I'm an alumnus of Messiah. I studied English here, and I also worked at our writing center, just working with different writers and, talking about things that are sometimes the scariest that keep us from feeling comfortable writing, and talking about different ways we can think about that to make writing something that's fun and interesting for everybody. So today we're going to talk about revision, particularly self-revising. And this is super helpful because sometimes you're handing in a paper and you don't know whether or not you did certain things correctly. And it's hard to know if you don't have a ton of experience or don't feel comfortable or feel like grammar is difficult. It can be hard to know how to self-edit that before you hand it in. So I'm just going to give you some helpful techniques I've learned over my time at the Writing Center. The first one is kind of content revision. How do you make sure your paper is organized? And this is a really simple, really easy version of kind of reverse outlining. I don't think I've ever had a person that this hasn't helped. I do it with my own papers all the time. Basically what you do this is you just go through paragraph by paragraph and write one word or phrase in the margin that you want to be the main point of that paragraph. Then what you do is you look back at the paragraph and make sure that every sentence is somehow relating to that main idea. And that's a really helpful way if you struggle with paragraph coherence, or your professor maybe says things are a bit all over the place. That's a good way to make sure you're kind of tightening those up. The next step you can do with that technique is line all those words up in order, the order you currently have them in the paper. Do they make the most sense, each word to flow into the next? And if not, then you can very easily move those words around, and then that translates into moving different paragraphs around, and it's a good way to make sure your argument is flowing. And that's a really helpful technique for all kinds of different things. Transitions, making sure one idea transitions into the next, just lining up those words and figuring out a sentence that incorporates them both. So I would definitely suggest playing around with that idea and seeing how it relates to your paper. The second revision thing is sentence structure. And so this can be difficult because there can be a lot of grammatical rules that apply to that, which might be hard to remember or know. But a main idea I always hold with me with sentence structure is this quote I read in a Chicago manual for writers. And the quote is, "Readers want to get past a short, concrete, and familiar noun as quickly and easily as possible to a verb expressing a specific action." Basically what that means is when we read a sentence, we want to know what your noun is. We want it to be something understandable. It shouldn't be something like having the unconscious awareness thrust upon me every day. It should be something that we can know just by the name of it. And we want it to be as close as possible to an action verb. This helps you avoid passive voice, helps you avoid using is too many times. We want those things to be as close as possible so we can understand the main idea of the sentence and then move on. And once you're following that rule, a lot of your grammatical problems will also be solved. So those are two great revision techniques. Other options, if you're looking for ways to revise, visit the Writing Center, or the Writer's Reference also has a whole section on self-revision, and that can be a good way to get more into the details of different techniques, and you can access that through your textbook or through your Canvas course.
Adventure education is defined as the use of adventurous activities as a catalyst for personal and interpersonal growth. It's as much about the education as it is about the adventure. Within our program here, you definitely learn the leadership, and so together you get the complete package of not just the technical skills, but how to utilize and design those adventure experiences to help groups reach their goals.
Well, as an adventure ed major, you have to take certain outdoor activities courses. So you have the options of doing rock climbing, you could do canoeing, you can do caving, and learning all these cool activities that you could never do sitting in a classroom. It's definitely what makes this program awesome.
Welcome to GoMessiah.com, the official website of Messiah College Athletics. On the homepage, you can find recent stories, a social media directory including general athletics and sport-specific accounts, and the Falcon YouTube stream. Scrolling down, you can view upcoming events with stats, audio, and video links if available, as well as recent results, including box scores and recaps. In those recaps, you can read the story along with view the photo gallery, next game information, team schedule, and roster. Game stats are on the side, and you can even watch the highlight of the night. These highlights are made possible by GoMessiah.tv, where you can view live streams and stats for all home games, regardless of where you are. GoMessiah.com, your home for everything Falcon.
Hi, my name is Abigail McBride. I'm an alumnus of Messiah. I studied English here, and I also worked at our writing center, just working with different writers about things that were scary and, different ways to think about them to make writing more enjoyable. And today we're going to talk about something that I think was definitely one of the top scary things for a lot of writers coming in, myself included, and that's the introduction and the conclusion. And I mean, how intimidating is it to start that first paragraph and close it off also? Both those things I think always feel a bit awkward. But I think that there are ways to kind of structure that for yourself that it doesn't feel as much like, oh my gosh, how do I do this, as you enter the introduction and conclusion parts of your paper. So for this, I always like to use a metaphor, and this is just about the purpose of the introduction and the conclusion. And basically, I like to think of your paper as a tunnel, where you're walking through a mountain in this tunnel, and during that time, we're really focused. We're looking at one area, just moving our selves forward along that tunnel. But in the introduction and the conclusion, our eyes need to adjust to the dark coming into the tunnel, and they need to adjust to the light coming out. So as we enter the tunnel, we want the writer to care for us, to help us enter the world of the paper and let our eyes slowly adjust to the tight, kind of dark focus we're going to have for the rest of the paper. And so I like to think of that as kind of a three-step process. In the beginning, something you might be familiar with is the idea of a hook, which is a way to get the reader interested. This is how you attract their attention to your tunnel in the beginning. It's the signpost that tells us where we're going. And a few ideas for that: it can be intimidating to try to grab someone's attention from the beginning of a paper. But different things you can use for that: a quote, a metaphor, an image, a question, a statistic. All these types of things are ways that you could start thinking about something that might be interesting to bring your reader into the paper. Then from there, you're going to move into the background of your paper. You start with your hook, and then you integrate that into what your paper is actually going to be about. Give us a little bit of history, a little bit of context, get our eyes adjusted. And then you're going to end that with your thesis statement, where then we fully entered, we understand the claim, and we're ready to keep moving. Then on our way out of the tunnel, this is when our eyes want to adjust to the light coming out. You want to be thinking about, how is this paper going to apply? How are they going to carry the experience that they've had in the tunnel with them as they enter the wider world? And this is where there can be some conflict maybe in what you learned in high school versus what you might practice in college. In high school, we're often cautioned so strongly against not introducing a new idea into a conclusion that it feels like all you can do is restate the same ideas you've already made, which is a great skill to have, because the last thing anyone wants as they're exiting a tunnel kind of bleary is like a wolf to jump out at them or something like that. We want to be comfortably adjusted and know what we're taking with us. So a good way to think about, how do you actually give your reader something to take with them versus just restate what you've already said, is answering the question, so what, as you're exiting the tunnel. The idea behind that is you maybe pick a community, like maybe it's Messiah College, maybe it's the world, maybe it's your neighborhood, maybe it's your friend group. It can be as small or big as you like, but answer, why does your paper matter? How does it relate? And that's a good way to make sure, the whole point of writing is to communicate with other people. And this is a way you can make sure you're not just writing a paper to answer a prompt or checking a list off, but you're actually caring for your reader. You're communicating with them. You're bringing them from the world that they know into something you want to say, and also making it useful as they leave. This is a great place to also make sure you go back and revise and check for word choice. Make sure that you're using words that are powerful, because again, this is the part that your reader is going to carry with them as they enter and leave in both sides. If you're looking for more help with this, your writer's reference, which is you can use both as the textbook or through your Canvas course, has sections both on introduction and conclusion, and it can help guide you more as you write those.